Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering, your home for real nuts and bolts guitar learning. Today I wanted to talk about soloing over 7th chords, which can be tricky for guitarists, and how that applies into the blues. So I'm going to give you some keys, just some tricks that you can use to give you some different ideas to solo with. Here's the problem with 7th chords, okay? 7th chords. Let's say if I'm in an A 7th chord. I was kind of noodle around on a 7th chord for a while. Seventh chords. So here's the main notes in a 7th chord: the root, the third, and the flatted 7th. So it's not a major chord. It's not a traditional major chord in the sense of 1, 3, 5, 7. It's got that flatted 7th. That sort of bluesy flatted 7th. That bluesy flatted 7th in there too. So when we go to try maybe soloing with it, we have a tendency to want to go with pentatonics. Well, pentatonics doesn't really get us, because part of the 7th chord is you've got the major third and the flatted 7th. Well, if I'm playing a major pentatonic over this, it doesn't include the flatted 7th. So that doesn't work. If I do a minor pentatonic, well, that includes the blues minor third, but not the major third. So neither one of them work perfectly. So we have to come up with a few other ideas that we can do. to over 7th chord. So I'm just going to give you a couple of quick keys for this. There is a PDF that goes along with this lesson. You can download that at the link that is in the YouTube description, and that will get you to the 4-page PDF for this lesson. So let's just start diving right into this. Okay, for a dominant 7th chord, we're going to be kind of in the key of A. And all of this lesson really is taken from a lesson from the great Guthrie Trapp, a legendary studio musician here in Nashville. He's been on the show, actually, and he puts out these little lessons, and I put the link to Guthrie's lesson on this just in the YouTube description down below. So he's kind of the one that thought of this approach to it, and I really loved it, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And we kind of fleshed it out a little bit with some of the musical examples as well. So one of the ways that you can solo over a dominant 7th chord is by using what's called a dominant 7th scale, which is like a major scale, but instead of the 7th step being, in this case a G sharp, we're going to use a flatted 7th. And it kind of gives this dominant 7th sound. So all it is a major scale, but with a flatted 7th. So if you look in your the page 1 there of our handout, we have I wrote it out in 2 octaves: A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. There's that flatted 7th. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. There's that flatted 7th again. And that's a good way to solo using a scale over that. Now that scale is also a mixolydian scale, if you want to think of it modally. If we switch to thinking about scales modally for a second, the major scale is built off of the first step. If I just went from first to first, from A to A in the key of A. But if I stayed in the key of A and I went from B to B, that would be a different kind of a scale. It would be a Dorian scale, and we'd call that a B-Dorian scale. But a mixolydian scale is based off of the 5th step of the scale. So if I'm thinking modally, if I'm in the key of, let's say, D major, the 5th step of that, and I would go from A to A, but in the key of D, that ends up being this same scale. And that works out well for working over a dominant 7th chord. So that's one way that you can approach it. You can approach it, excuse me, you can approach it as a dominant 7th scale that you're playing in between these different notes. So I wrote it out there in a typical way that you'd play it on guitar with 2 octaves there. All right, so that's one way. If I've got an A7th that I'm trying to play over, I wonder if I can get my looper going. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I just play that dominant 7th scale, so that works real well. Okay, that works real well doing it that way. So that's one way you can approach it, as a mixolydian or as a dominant 7th scale. Another way that you can approach it is by using, on page 2, I talk about the 5 minor chords. So if I go up to the 5th step of an A scale, that ends up being an E. If I make that minor and do kind of an E minor, another option is I can do an E minor arpeggio over, or E minor based ideas over an A7th. So that's another idea that you can play. So over our A7th, if I got my track going again here, I can play an E minor 7th, which the notes in an E minor 7th are an E, G, B, D, and as long as I kind of spin out of it back into maybe the resolve to the C sharp of the A, then that works. E minor 7th. So that's another way that I can approach it by using an E minor 7th arpeggio or something like that, E minor ideas over an A7. So it just gives you another option. Instead of just going to a pentatonic, which isn't going to work as well, or a minor pentatonic, which isn't going to work as well, I've got another option, okay, is I can throw an E minor 7th over an A7th and play E minor 7th type arpeggio. So I put a little diagram there at the top of the page, which is if I just go up the partials of an A7th, A, C sharp, E, G, that's the 7th. If I just keep going, there's a B. If I keep going up, it's a D. Well, that's an E minor 7th right there. So do you see how an E minor 7th is just kind of the top partials of an A7th? And so that's why this little idea works. So basically what I want you to know about that is over an A7th, I can play an E minor arpeggio, and it's going to sound fine. If I'm, let's take it to a different key. If I'm in the key of D, and I want to solo over a D7th, I need to go to its 5th, which would be an A, and play an A minor 7th. So over a D7th, I can play an A minor 7th. So that's a little trick that we could use. Okay, another trick that you can use is over an A7th, I've got it written down here, you can go to its 7th, which is the flatted 7th, the G, and do a major 7th arpeggio. So a G major 7th, I can play G major 7th licks over an A7th. So let's get our track going again. So here's my E minor 7th licks. Here's my dominant 7th scale. But I can also use a G major 7th over that. As long as I kind of spin out of it. So you can use these different tricks to spin into an A7th sort of a sound. So if I go through a G major 7th arpeggio, G, B, D, F sharp, and then land on the A, or maybe throw a C sharp in there. So you can see how that G major 7th, that works as well. Well, that G major 7th works as well. Well, why does that work? Well, that's the next level up of the partials of an A7. So since an E minor and a G major are relative to each other, I can kind of substitute them in there as well. So now I've got all kinds of possibilities. I can do the dominant 7th scale. I can do an E minor 7th over an A7th. I could do the flatted 7th, major 7th. So I would do like a G major 7th over an A7th. If I was soloing over D7th, I could do a C major 7th. So and it's just another option for you to do it. So I included that over there. If you look on page 3, another way to do it is to do just going up to the 3rd, which would be the C sharp in the A, and doing a minor 7 flat 5. So I could also do a C sharp minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio and ideas based out of that. That's oftentimes a little bit more thinking, a little bit more theory than folks want to have to do. So generally the E minor 7th and the G major 7th are a little bit better options for lots of folks, especially in blues. So, but you can see how they're all just based off of the partials, the extra tones that are in the A7. So there you go. Hey, I wanted to show you before I finish up, I wanted to show you there's a couple licks that you can use. Like if I'm trying to do over an A7 and I'm trying to play an E minor, I can do an E minor arpeggio and then resolve to that C sharp. Well, a good way to practice any lick is to take it and be able to do it on every string combination possible. So if I do this, that's on the 3rd string with a root. If I do it with a 4th string on the root, it ends up being this fingering. Now in the diagram there on page 3, I show you the notes. Then you also see some circled numbers underneath. That's the finger number. So that first measure of that, 3rd finger on the E, this is kind of in the 7th position. 3rd finger on the E, 2nd finger on the B, 1st finger on the B, pinky on the D, and then resolving back to the C sharp. Well, if I put a root on the 4th string, the fingering changes slightly, but I'm still able to get it there. If I do it on the 5th string, lower an octave. That is another option. Now that fingering, pinky, 2nd, 1st, pinky, if I do it with a root on the 6th string, it's the same fingering. So do you see how whether the root is on the 3rd string, or excuse me, 5th string, or on the 6th string, it's the same fingerings that you can go through. So I included that little lick that you could do, that's ascending, but I could also do the lick descending. So if you turn the page, and we do the lick descending, a version of it, that's a different way to do it. If I did it on the next string set, 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, 1st finger, and then you slide back to the C sharp there. If I did it on the lower string set, B, G, E, D, 1st finger on the C sharp. You can even maybe go up to the A there just to give it, to make it spin more in the key of A. You always want to watch your dismount and how you get out of a lick. It doesn't matter. A lot of times what the middle part of the lick is, as long as you catch the ending of it. That still sounded like a lick in A, even though I completely played a G major 7th lick over that. I ended up on the A, and that made it sound like an A7th. All right, so I gave you some different options there, ascending and descending. Now, if you want to practice these, here's how you practice those. First of all, get the fingerings underneath your belt. Try it in different keys. Let's do a D minor. ascending and descending, and work your way through all of the keys, and that will be good practice for you this week to do that. So how do I apply these concepts over an A blues? All right, so let's talk about that. The last thing I wanted to tell you, on page 4 there, if I apply these sorts of concepts to an A blues, okay? So we have an A 7th, and then it goes to a D 7th, then back to A 7th for a couple of bars. Then we do D 7 for 2 bars back to A 7th. The 5 chord, which is an E 7th, then the 4 chord, which is D 7th, and then back to the A 7th. Okay, so it's a 12-bar blues form. So over the 1 chord, over that A 7, now I have some options. I could play E minor 7th licks. I can play G major 7th licks. I can play C sharp minor 7 flat 5 sort of licks over that. Over the 4 chord, which is a D 7, I'm just doing the same concepts, but I'm going to put them over D 7th. So then the 5 minor ends up being an A minor or a C major 7th or an F sharp minor 7 flat 5. The 5 chord, the E 7, over that I can do a B minor 7th. I could do a D major 7th. And I could do a G sharp minor 7 flat 5. So there's different options there. So let me just play a really slow, let me cancel out my track and I'll just play a really slow A blues, and I'll show you how we can do some of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's my loose 8-track A blues. So if I'm going to try and play some of these ideas over this, so over that D7, I'm going to play this A minor. Over the A7th, I'm going to do an E minor 7th. Over the E7th, I'm going to do a B minor. E minor 7th. D7, I'm going to do the A minor 7th. Back to the A7th. I'm going to do a B minor 7th here. So just some different ideas that you can mess around with to give you some options of playing over an A 7th chord or any dominant 7th chord. You just have to work on your transposing and with the different techniques involved, and that will come together for you. So hopefully that helps. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Keep up the great work in your learning, and we will see you next time.